Coming to you from the Black Swan Media Studios, this is Fireside Chats, talking to the real difference makers in the world. Now, here is your host, John Crump.
Good evening, everyone out there. Today is Thursday, the eve before SHOT Show ends. Unfortunately, I'm still not at SHOT Show, as you can see, and I'm not going to be out there. So, I'll get there next year. I'll get back there next year. Tonight, we are brought to you by Warriors Revolution. Warriors Revolution makes really cool ammo. They make ammo and a bunch of other stuff. They have been kind enough to sponsor us on multiple occasions, and tonight is no different. And you can also sponsor me by going to patreon.com/John Crump or paypal.me/John CC. And let's jump into it. It's really interesting that a Warriors Revolution sponsored tonight's show because they are located in Colorado. And our guest had something to do out in Colorado with a bunch of stuff out there. He's a hero to a lot of people out in Colorado because of his efforts in the recall out there. I am joined by former NRA board member and all-around good guy who was out in Virginia, and that is Timothy Knight.
Hey, thanks for having me.
What's that?
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, no problem. It was I didn't get the chance to run into you on Monday, which was unfortunate. But why did you come out to the rally in Richmond on Monday?
You know, it's a republic, and although I'm not a citizen of Virginia, I know that we need to stand together. I've been traveling to Virginia since 2015, doing political stuff, and grassroots is really defined by interacting with people. And that was going to be, I could have told anyone who was going to listen, that was going to be an awesome grassroots thing. And I was not wrong. It was amazing to see first the citizens of Virginia standing up to tyranny, trying to, and saying, yeah, no, I don't think so. And I was continued to be blown away by the fact that I met people from California and Michigan and all these other states that came to support the citizens of Virginia because they know that tyranny can spill over. It's awesome.
I met someone from Alaska, actually.
I believe it.
Who made the trip down, which was incredible. There was a lot of threats of violence, people saying there was going to be violence and it was going to be another Charlottesville. I never believed that. But did you believe that at all?
No, I didn't, because I've been to large meetings in large places with many gun owners, and that's just not how it works. Gun owners are responsible people, and honestly, who would want to start something with a responsible, well-armed group? I wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't either. There wasn't really any violence. In fact, it was one of the most polite places I have ever been in my life.
It was. People were picking up trash without being told. People brought trash bags. Everyone would talk to you. Everyone felt very open and welcoming. Anyone you wanted to talk to knew we were there for a reason and a common cause to defend a constitutional amendment and stand up against tyranny. And that they wanted it to be some white nationalist thing. That's how they were trying to label it, and that there will be violence. And it was exactly not that. I saw people of every race, religion, and creed there. I saw Second Amendment rights flags. I saw people who cover the political spectrum in every way, standing there, happy to be with each other, and probably felt really safe.
Talking about the white nationalist angle, white supremacist angle, GQ came out with an article today where they were talking about the sheer numbers of Confederate flags that was there. And I don't even recall seeing one.
No, I didn't see one either. And I didn't pretty much stop moving, was there. I walked most of the side streets where a lot of the media shots failed to even capture the crowd. And I didn't see a single one.
Yeah. That was my question. I was like, if there was so many Confederate flags everywhere,
Nope.
and they were talking about how it was all white men,
Not
which
at all.
very diverse crowd. So, did this guy at GQ and also other publications that wrote similar things? Do you think they wrote the article before the rally even happened? And just
Probably, there was a lot of wishful thinking unfortunately, wishful thinking on the in the press. They were reporting a lot of the same things, and there's gonna be violent white nationalist stuff, and, you know, the wishful thinking is extremely disappointing because that's not really who we are. Politicians, unfortunately, in this day and age, spend a lot of time trying to divide us. You're different than that person. You're supposed to hate this person. You're supposed to hate that person. And what we saw in Richmond and what I see often when I travel for Second Amendment stuff is exactly the opposite of that. People don't look to be divided. They look for commonalities. They look to stand together. They're like, you're different. I'm different. Cool. Let's learn from each other. The exact opposite of what they said was going to happen.
yeah, here is another question for you. Getting off the Virginia thing, I think we've done that a lot on this show. A lot, like almost every episode for the last 3 weeks. You were involved in the Colorado recalls,
I
but
was.
before we get into that, I want to know: have you ever seen a movie called Rocky Mountain Heist?
I haven't seen that.
It's about what the Bloomberg groups came into Colorado and they did, and at the end of the movie, they talk about how the next target's gonna be Virginia.
Mhm.
So Colorado went through a similar thing that Virginia did. What you ended up doing is getting a couple senators recalled, state senators, I believe.
Yep. In
How
2013, the president of the Senate at the time, John Morris, took a phone call from whom we believe was Joe Biden, and he was instructed to try universal background checks, magazine capacity, a bill that would pass blame on to manufacturers, although that's not legal. Everything at the time that they thought Colorado might. It wasn't full on crazy, but pretty crazy. And I sat down with the guy and we said, well, kind of what are our options? We let the legislature do their thing. In Colorado in 2013, when people were testifying at the Capitol, the Capitol was packed. There were crowds outside. Some guy was flying a biplane around the outside, and people were driving around the building honking. And I think had the legislature at that time let everyone talk, probably we wouldn't have later gotten traction with some of the political things that we did. But they cut everyone short, including the sheriffs. They said, okay, all the sheriffs of Colorado, choose one and you could talk for 2 minutes. Everyone got pretty shortchanged by that process. So people left the Capitol angry, and it opened up the door for us later to do recalls. We ended up eventually recalling the president of the Colorado Senate and one other senator, another group who we helped out, and they helped us to recalled another senator. And after it's all said and done, and we can go to the nitty gritty if you want, but we had Michael Bloomberg giving money, Eli Broad, another billionaire, giving money to the other side. Bill Clinton's ground team, as well as Barack Obama's ground team, were all on the ground against a thing started by 7 guys who met on ARFCOM or AR15.com and had never met each other before. And we were all completely political novices going up against these massive political machines. And we beat him twice in one day. It was amazing. You're muted.
Oh, sorry. With that was amazing, but with that, were you able to roll back any of the stuff that they passed?
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Nope. Yeah, well, one of your magazine laws is really crazy. Like you can ship a magazine in parts to be assembled. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's still in Colorado. Ship. You can buy kits that are taken apart. That has the other states have learned that lesson. But yes, you can get repair parts from a magazine.
Yeah, that's really funny because I know someone who shipped out a bunch of magazines out there and like parts,
Yep.
and it's totally legal, which is crazy. Uh, The Rocky Mountain Heist is on Vimeo. I can try to get you a link,
Well, I'll
Chris.
check it out for sure. I'm curious as to what the perspective was. No, there's another book. This one's a book, it's called The Blueprint, and it's how Colorado was flipped politically. And they are the forces, the thought processors, the doers are in the process of blueprinting several states, Virginia having been one, Texas, and a couple of others, North Carolina and Georgia are all definitely on the list of how they chip away at the system and get people involved and redraw district lines and influence and find people who of power within the state and say, look, you can help your citizens for their betterment, and you should really. I'll get you a copy of the blueprint because it's really scary when citizens don't engage. When people, we run into apathy in voting all the time, where people say, well, my vote doesn't matter, and I'm not going to do that. Well, they're counting on that. They're counting on us to be too busy in our lives to participate. And that's part of how they blueprint our states is people go, well, you know what? I just want to be left alone. Well, me too. I wanted to be left alone. But in 2013 in Colorado, I had my political beginning and I had no choice. I had to get in the water. I had to get going and work with other people to get stuff done. And if we sit on the sidelines and just wait, tyranny will come. And
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds very similar to Rocky Mountain Heist, but in book form. But it talked about a lot of that stuff. And out here in Virginia, there is a constitutional amendment that the Democrats have been trying to push through for years that will outlaw gerrymandering. The districts and the lines would be drawn by a nonpartisan commission based on population and stuff like that. And the crazy thing is, once they got power, they decided that law might not be good.
right.
Yeah. But I think in Virginia, apathy was a big part of it.
Yeah, my brother-in-law who lives in the Richmond area said it best. He said Bloomberg got Virginia on the cheap because people he dumped a ton of money. He saw how he was not able to quite flip the Senate in 2015. They kept the Virginia State Senate by one seat. I campaigned in that seat. Can't say I was the deciding factor, but we saw the map and kept it by one seat. And he knew that the formula was just to continue to dump money into it, strategically choosing seats. And then, he did it. And then, unfortunately, voter turnout was well less than 40% in Virginia. And those things combined really toasted Virginia. Now, the positive, if there is one, is we've now mostly all seen the awesome map of Virginia and the sanctuary movement there in cities and counties where people woke up and said, wait, what just happened? And that may be a lesson from Virginia and beyond is wait, what just happened? Yeah, we sit it out, wait just a minute. They'll be here and take it for you. They got it for you, folks. If we don't participate, we will be done. There's that quote, which people get tired of me saying it, but outside where they keep the Constitution etched in stone, it says eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. We don't ever not get to have these struggles and people trying to take away our rights. What we have to do is educate others in the process, which you do on your show a lot. And everyone listening, look, it's about education. I was reading a stat today, 4% of our population hunt. It's probably a similar number of people who are actively engaged in the protection of our Second Amendment. And folks, join all the groups you want because there's some awesome ones, but you've got to participate. An individual right needs to be individual participation. And at the least, you have to vote.
Yeah, I see a lot of people say, well, I gave money to this group, I gave money to that group. And what I always tell them is you have to get involved. I mean, that's even more important than giving money, is getting involved. Write a letter, write an email, call. I mean, it's not a lot of work to do, to just write a letter or make a phone call or send an email, but it does make a world of difference. I do believe that what happened in Virginia kind of woke up a lot of people in Virginia.
Mhm.
And I think in the next election cycle, which this year is not a state election cycle, it's a national election cycle.
Correct.
I think those gun owners that didn't show up will show up as long as we can keep them engaged. And keeping them engaged, I think that's the big part.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Yeah, that's gonna take the engagement part is look, what we're doing here is awesome because we're able to communicate with a whole bunch of people, and we're able to reach out and remind people, hey, you matter. That's got to be a thing. But what we need people to start doing is knocking on doors. We need people to start having conversations with guys at the range and guys at the gun store. As I've said before, people say to me, hey Tim, you always talk to the choir. Right. I need the choir to show up and sing. And when the choir sings, when they're paying attention, when we as freedom loving, Second Amendment honoring folks start talking and sharing and participating, other people are going to start asking questions. And that's what we need. We're going to lose unless we engage. And like you're saying, we don't have another election in Virginia at the state level that's going to affect anything real soon. So what we need to do is continue to engage them. It's a long process. It's a several-year plan. Unfortunately, we have to have these several-year plans for almost every state.
yeah, we have to. I don't think it's going to be easy for them to flip any more seats. So now it's time for us to take back some seats.
Yep.
That's one of the good things. Did you happen to see the guillotine that was there?
I did.
Yeah, they left it there in the middle of the street, a full size guillotine. I saw a meme today. I posted it on Instagram. I stole it from whoever it was, but it said, "Ban guns from the Capitol. We will bring a guillotine."
Well, symbolism, it's a thing.
Yeah,
It's one of those things where we always talk about, you've heard the phrase, the soapbox, standing on the soapbox and speaking, in the ballot box, and then the jury box, and then the cartridge box. We have to remember, folks, that we really need not skip boxes. Nobody wants the last box. We can't necessarily count on the courts to follow the Constitution because the Constitution, for some strange reason, isn't the supreme law of the land in a lot of places. But it's up to us to be talking, and it's up to us to be voting and participating. That's the only way that guillotine remains symbolic.
yeah, I think we're going to not go through federal court because, unfortunately, Virginia Circuit Court is very anti-gun, even more so than the Ninth, the federal circuit court that we report to. So I think what we're going to do is go through the state court because the Virginia Constitution is even clearer than the U.S. Constitution on a few different things, where it says like the militia is separate from the standing army, and it also says the militia is made up of the body of the people. And
It's a very clear part of the Virginia Constitution, and to me, it's very clear. A lot of states are very much more clear than the federal Constitution.
yeah, so I think that is one of the good things we have going for ourselves, and plus our court kind of leans.
It's an option for sure, but that's need not be the only option. Yes, the court option is going to have to be one we do, but the soapbox and the ballot box are no less relevant until things change. So it's a multi-pronged approach where it's going to need groups to support lawsuits and plaintiffs. Or rather defendants, don't need more plaintiffs, defendants in these cases to do this. And I'm sure that several groups in Virginia have standing, and that's great. And I hope that a lot of firearms associated groups get behind some of these lawsuits. It really needs to happen. There needs to be a broad, I don't think so, coming from them, but that education of the lawsuit. Okay, this lawsuit's happening. This is going on. Sharing that with people who are making donations and for wanting to participate is super key too. This is another way to get them fired up.
Yeah, well, I'm in constant contact with the VCDL, my counterparts at the VCDL, and also at the Firearms Policy Coalition and the Second Amendment Foundation.
Awesome.
I'm in constant contact, and we share information, and we have no qualms about working with each other.
Great.
We all know that it's bigger than any one particular group or any one particular person. It's going to take a team effort, because we don't have a billionaire like a Bloomberg that would just throw money at the problem.
The only thing we can outspend Bloomberg on is man hours, volunteer man hours. That's the only thing we can beat him on, because he has resources. a little bit of a tangent. If we take the state of Ohio, for instance, he already has, I think, about 90 staff members and about 16 field offices already. That's just in the state of Ohio, and he's doing it in other states. And the scary thing about his resources, folks, is that he's not only, if he doesn't win, he's promising to stay in these states, keep these offices open after the primaries, all the way through the general election. And everything that he supports, everything that he participates in, he will be basing his operations out of those offices. And the only way we're going to check that is by putting the manpower in ourselves.
Exactly. We talked about the need for like grassroots efforts, local efforts. If you are out there and you want to organize a grassroots effort, because you did,
Mm-hmm.
what is the biggest piece of advice you can give to someone?
Don't think that you can't do it because you've never done anything before. Don't be afraid. As tough as it is, I run into so many people and they say, "I'm just the average Joe. I don't know what I'm doing." Guess what? I didn't either. I sat down with an attorney friend of mine and said, "I have some questions," and we dove in. And then we actually had to pay an attorney to get things done a little bit. But you have to know that everyone has a start in activism. And if you're going to be afraid to make the start, that will be what holds you back. But your engagement, that's the thing you have to know, is that you may not always do the right thing. We made some mistakes. We absolutely did. But you cannot be afraid to engage. I'm a dyslexic. I cannot write at all. I'm a voracious reader, got books everywhere, books. So I figured out what I'm not good at and found a team and put together a team of folks to work with. So that teamwork thing, the 7 guys that we started the Colorado recall movement with, we didn't know each other before. We just said, look, we have a common concern. We're going to do a ton of research on it, and then we're going to go. So don't be afraid to start. And every state's a little different, and traditions are different in states. Virginia has the great lobby day thing. Other states are starting to catch up on that. But folks, don't be afraid to start. That's what you have to take away from that.
Yeah. How did you meet these guys, and how did you decide to work with these guys?
Yeah, it's a funny story. I'm a member of ARFCOM or AR15.com, and we were in the hometown forum section. In the hometown forums have subfolders for every state, and we were venting our frustration with politics in Colorado and chatting back and forth. Hey, this is going on, that's going on. And a gentleman by the name of James Cozart and myself, both of whom, fortunately, I'm native Californian, and so is he, said, they did a recall out in California. What is it? So he and I sat down at his shop where I bought a snowblower, and we sat down and figured out the basics of Colorado's recall provisions, and we posted on ARFCOM, and a ton of people said, "Oh, I'm in. I want to help." And we followed up with instant messages and then phone calls and kind of sifted out who was really going to put the time and effort in. And it ended up being 7 guys from ARFCOM who started that recall. The recall further south of us in Pueblo for Angela Jarone were more ARFCOMers who we all ended up working together. We complemented each other at the time. We started our recall legally a little sooner, but we helped them, they helped us. But we were all met online. None of us knew each other. Now we're all fast friends. We get together every 5 years. We talk on the phone all the time. We made friends in the political trenches.
You know what I think is funny? That I was reading something about the recall while I was doing a little bit of research for this, and I found a lot of articles calling it special interest trying to get these guys recalled.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really funny because the people calling it special interest was like Moms Demand Action and in Everytown, which are actually funded by a billionaire.
Right.
He founds Everytown, and Everytown financially supports Moms Demand Action. So I'm like, wait a minute, that's a billionaire.
Right. Yeah, that's very special interest. And in addition to that, the phone calls are made of, look, Big Pharma owes you, and Indian casinos owe you, and the marijuana vote owes you or whatever. Those calls happen. The influence comes with those billionaires in addition to all of that. We were up against all that. So when they say special interest, it's really quite funny. We fundraised a ton. We had people sending us money. We had to legally form an entity to do the recalls. It was very complicated, but we crowdsourced some of it. Some of us sold firearms, and a lot of them, and put off buying things. We got the signatures done and got the governor and we had to drag it through court. We had to go to 8 hearings or court sessions, district court, just to get the governor to force him to do a recall election, to put it on the calendar. And then the allies came. So when they say big interest, special interest, yeah, they came. Americans for Prosperity came. The NRA came. Alan Gottlieb chipped in for some too. I'm sure Gun Owners of America did something. Lots of people came in after there was an election to be had. But before that, the actual function of getting it to an election was completely grassroots. And we were fought at every stop. As a matter of fact, they changed the voting law in Colorado to mail out ballots. Now, most people, when I say that, they think, oh, mail out absentee ballots. No. Colorado mail out live ballots. And they think, why would that matter? Well, what happens is people throw those ballots away. Your junk mail, you throw it away. Those ballots are being harvested and voted on. So we had everything going against us. And the special interest wasn't there. It was just 7 guys along with a whole bunch of volunteers in Colorado Springs and another bunch of folks down in Pueblo who put in the time and the effort. I fell asleep on my keyboard. I was up 20 hours a day. It took a massive amount of effort to do it. But it was interest because they're all interested. But there was nothing special about it other than we put the time in. There was no big money.
Yeah, I'm learning about running on little sleep to get stuff done right now. They call Gun Owners of America and Firearms Policy Coalition and all these groups special interest groups, but all our funding comes from our members.
Right.
And
Yep.
all their funding actually comes from there's not a membership. There is a membership, but most of their funding comes from outside.
Correct. Any group or association or whatnot, it's easy to blame a building or a group or whatever. It's easy to blame that. It's their fault. They did it, whatever. But what in reality they're doing is pointing out, look, it's easy for the press to blame some building in Virginia or something like that or some group. That's easy. The reality is what they're doing is blaming law-abiding legal gun owners who were firemen in Texas and art teachers in Portland, Oregon, or some guy in New Hampshire who logs. I don't know. Pick some. They're all gun owners. They all choose to belong to these various groups. So no, I'm not buying it. You're right. It's all about the members. It always has been, and you know what? It always will be.
Yeah. Did you happen to see Bloomberg's comment where he's talking about Jack Wilson, and he said only the police should have guns, and what did he say? Only the police should be able to decide when to shoot.
Yeah, I did. First of all, it's real rich coming from a guy who has his own private security detail.
Yeah, it's like, well, they're not police. Why don't you get rid of them?
Right, exactly. Okay, cool. Then you can unplug your people. Bloomberg should be able to have the same number of private security detail that he's telling me I can't have, which is 0. And I'm sure that's not good enough for him because he's special. He's going to heaven already, so he told us in an interview. So, no. Not buying it. I have many police officer friends. Some of them see their firearm as a tool of the job. Some of them see it as more than that. And depending on the level of training they get, well, there are a lot of civilians I know who spend a lot of time shooting and training police officers. So that let's divide and tell people they need to hate each other and be different and law enforcement this and civilian that. Folks, not buying it.
Yeah, in Colorado, there was a red flag. Red flag law just went into effect.
Yep.
There's been 6 cases so far. One of the cases was an officer who was red flagged because he shot someone who charged at him with a knife in 2017. So the mom red flagged him because on the form it says, "Do you have a child in common?" Which, to you and I, that means do do we have a biological child together?
Right.
It didn't say that. So she said, "Well, I took it as, do we have a child in common in any manner?" And he shot my child. So she red flagged him,
Yep.
and he had to go to court. He won, but he still had to go to court over a bogus charge like that.
Yeah, and this is when we skirt the Constitution, this is what happens. When we take away due process, when we pervert the system with, just like you said, look, she decided the form meant something else. And you could in Colorado, I don't believe it is a problem, but in some states, if you say something and it turns out to be false, or you false flag somebody, there's a big consequence to that. But what was wrong with the Constitution in the first place, the constitutional process? There wasn't one. Maine actually has an interesting process where if someone were to go wrong on the red flag thought process, a police officer would show up and make a determination whether they thought that was the case. They would then have to bring a mental health professional in. Then they would go to court if all the officer agreed and the mental health professional agreed. And then they would see the judge, and the judge would then determine if there was a path to it's called yellow papering, and a path to restoration of rights if they must take them away. They don't allow the loss of due process. And in Maine, what they did with this was take the time to talk to the mental health professionals, to talk to the concerned parties, to talk to the senators beforehand and say, what's best for Maine? Because Bloomberg tried to drop a red flag bill in Maine, and it didn't work because the mental health professionals, the firearms and hunting communities took the time. They knew it was coming, and they prepped the field for this. They said, okay, cool. What's going to happen is a Bloomberg billionaire lawyer is going to come in here with a bill, and someone's going to sponsor it. So let's talk about this now and deal with the right process in doing it. And that's how they headed it off. And that's what we all need to be doing almost with every thought process. But in the case of Maine, they had a way, because they saw what happened in Maryland and what was going to happen in places like Colorado, and they said, you know what, we're not interested in that, and they handled it the right way as opposed to waiting to see what was going to happen.
Yeah, there is a lot of really bad laws out there. Someone once said, a right delayed is a right denied.
Yep.
And I truly believe that, because it really is. You're gonna make people spend money on lawyers and go fight this to prove their innocence when it's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. And if someone's really that much of a danger, why wouldn't you just take them in or whatnot? If they're committing a crime or something like that, why not just take them in? Because they can always just go out and get another gun.
Yes. Well, here's the thought process too, is when someone's red flag, what they do is they come in and they take all your firearms. But what they have left you with is all your kitchen knives and your credit cards and your car. You can hurt somebody with your car, not saying that you should do that, folks. Or you can go to Home Depot and go make something, because you can go do that. Why leave a person angry and not actually having addressed the problem? But that's all they're doing. They're taking away the firearms. They're not actually taking the time to address the issue. Now, what we also have seen, Hold My Guns, which Sarah Albrecht has done down in Pennsylvania, and she's trying to spread that program wide, where there is a way for people to figure out, hey, you know what, all is not right with me or Uncle Bob or whatever, and then they using FFLs to have someone hold your guns with legally, and it's a phenomenal program. We are better off as a community figuring out what we can do and how we can do it, and how we can muddle through this and come up with good ideas, because the other side's waiting for us to fail. And if we're taking the time, whether it be Maine saying, let's keep the process right, or Sarah Albrecht's idea of Hold My Guns, to do that, we as a community can do that. We are actually often the answers the answer to the solution in our community. If we take the time, we can work out some of the stuff. It's great to see it, because there's a response from us who they're accusing. They say we don't care, or we like guns more. That's nice, except that we're actually figuring out how to address these things.
Yeah. Hold My Guns is a great, great organization. Sarah and Genevieve over there have done a tremendous job. And for full disclosure, I'm on the mental health board of Hold My Guns, and I do a lot of work with them. Sarah and Genevieve. If you don't know, Genevieve is the co-founder, who is John Patton's wife.
Soon to be fiance, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
soon to be.
and full disclosure as well, I'm also associated with Hold My Guns. It's just, yeah, I was asked to help, and I certainly, when
Yeah, you're on the board, right?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, that's what Sarah told me.
Yeah. So, anytime I can get a chance to point out where good people are doing great things and taking the time and of course plugging things in and showing themselves and us to be responsible. I don't win. Making people safe, dealing with the actual issues. That's what we need and want.
Yeah, Hold My Guns is a great organization. Yeah, Sarah told me Sarah and Genevieve are on my show a lot.
I know. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, we actually did a mental health special together.
Yep.
Yeah, with all of them. Genevieve and I both suffer from anxiety disorders and stuff like that, and a lot of the same disorders. So it was really good to have her on the show. He kind of were open about our problems and the similarities,
Sure.
and we both believe that with mental health, for example, you have to be open because there's a stigma there, and the stigma is not good, and that's what ends up getting people hurt. In fact, there is a study that shows that if you put, I'll send this to you.
Please.
Um, I'm getting ready to write an article on it. That if you put um, the choice in someone's hands, they usually will get help before they go over the edge or before like
Sure.
a red.
Why make it a problem when you can address it? I mean, we all know, we all learn this from, and I'm not saying it's easy, but we all know from when we're little, when we realize the world is in fact unfair, and that the best way to deal with an issue is to actually address it. And as human beings, we tend to procrastinate. I know I do. Where I'm like, I really don't want to deal with that now. And people who have greater concerns than that, why would we ignore that? But what we're teaching our society to do, unfortunately, is to ignore that, as opposed to actually saying, look, hey, you need some help. We should be encouraging that. And what they're trying to do is make it worse and hide it. Yet they always say, when you hear, well, it's a mental health thing. Cool. What are we doing about that? Well, Hold My Guns is a thing, but to yours and Sarah's issues, why would we not talk about that? Why would we not help our friends?
Genevieve. I don't think Sarah suffers from as bad of
No,
Genevieve.
she doesn't. She doesn't. No.
Yeah. But yeah, that's exactly right. And if you put these red flag laws, what I feel is it's going to make people hide their problems and not get help because they're afraid that they're going to lose their rights.
Yep.
So that's why I really like Hold My Guns. There's another program out there run by another friend of mine, Mike Sedani, who is, and that is Walk the Talk America, which is another firearms started mental health organization. He used to run like Eagle Imports, which is like Versa and a bunch of other gun companies to get together, and he gave that up to take a non-paying job to concentrate on mental health.
Mike has done a great job, and he has done a great job reaching out to the industry and teaching people to have the conversation. And that is another phenomenal angle. When people say we don't care, I say, you have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea what we're talking about at all, because we are having those conversations, whether it be Hold My Guns or Walk the Talk America. These are all options, and they're different. But these are all options that are available to us. Maybe putting that in the show notes if you do that with links. I know you've done it before, but this is the key. Again, we as gun owners are supporting these things. We want to have these conversations, and we very much are proud of these people who are doing these things, because they're getting it done, and they need our support. Both of those groups too.
They definitely do. They definitely do. There's a GoFundMe for Hold My Guns, and I think I have them some funding. I don't want to say anything right now, but I think I do.
Great, fantastic.
Yeah. So I've been working on that. I've been helping out Sarah a little bit on that side of things, and there's going to be another article coming about Hold My Guns. But I think it's really important, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what Hold My Guns is.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people see, okay, well, they're trying to take away my guns, and it's like,
Not at all.
no, it's that's not what it's about.
Nope.
It's about giving a option for people to use, and it's not a mandatory option. And
No, it
it's
isn't. It's voluntary. And
it,
and that was the key thing. And people say, well, where do these ladies come from and what's their deal? To Sarah had a friend of hers, I think it was daughter or commit suicide, and she was very concerned with what should happen. And as we talked about, Genevieve had some concerns of her own, and they kind of met in the middle there. And again, it was taking the time to understand, hey, you know what, we can actually make a difference here. We can give people an option. No one's taking anything. What they're doing is showing you the proper and legal possible way for storage of your firearms when times aren't good, or you're sick, or somebody else is sick, and following the law using FFLs to do that. Now, that sounds like a win to me. Nobody's taking anything. It's voluntary.
yeah, and some people ask, like, well, why can't you just give it to a family member or a friend? What the issue is, in a lot of states, you can't.
Correct.
You would be committing a felony in Pennsylvania or New Jersey or whatnot. You are breaking the law, and that is insane. And a lot of mental health people don't know that. I was talking to Mike about that from Walk the Talk, and someone asked them, well, why can't people just give their guns to a friend or a family member? And he's like, because in a lot of states like New Jersey, you would be committing a felony.
Because the politicians have already thought of that, and they don't want that.
Yeah, and he's been able to actually flip a lot of people who were for like really strong, like universal background checks and whatnot, and was been able to flip them the opposite way by showing them, hey, this is the danger of it.
Yeah, there's nothing actually universal about universal background checks. It's not like an improved background check, which would be a better word if there were such a thing, an improved background check. It's not that at all. And a universal background check is a false thing because, as you well know, they're going to say, well, you have to keep track of all transactions. Cool. Where's the central database for that? Oh, well, that's the next step, folks. Register them all so that we can keep track of them. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Universal sounds, it was, I'm sure Bloomberg's people reached into a hat and said, let's pick a cool word, not improved, because it's not actually improved. Let's pick, I don't know, universal. It's one of those things where you can call up 85 people or 100 people in a poll and say, what do you think about universal background checks? Wow, that sounds all encompassing. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, it was created by the term was created by the Brady campaign.
Yeah.
The same group that created assault weapons because it sounded like assault rifle.
Yeah, it was the Sugarman out in California and associated with Brady. Yeah, absolutely. And it's the terminology, it's just like the term gun violence. Really cool. Are we concerned about alcohol violence, car violence, knife violence, pool violence? No, that's where we need to not fall for the vocabulary. It's got to stop. People say gun violence all the time. I'm like, there's no such thing. There's violence perpetrated by humans. Sure. Is there evil? Sure. But there's no such thing as gun violence.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day, and they were talking about the epidemic of people being killed with assault weapons.
Right.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like AR-15s. I was like, do you realize that more people a year accidentally get tangled up in their sheets and get strangled that way than are killed by
Yeah. Hammer.
uh,
More people are killed by hammers.
or a foot?
Yeah.
More people are,
Falling off a ladder.
yeah, it's ridiculous.
Not belittling any of the deaths. I certainly don't wish that on anyone, of course, but come on. It's one of those things that sounds like we're cracking atoms and changing the world. No, even one might be too many. And that comes down to, okay, let's be responsible. Let's, pay attention. Let's teach. Let's, make sure of our muzzle discipline, but which, by the way, in Richmond, from everything I saw, was awesome. Let's be aware of these things and share, as opposed to, well, yeah, gosh, all those assault weapons. I mean, mine have been very well behaved, John, since I purchased them. They haven't shot anybody.
Oh, that's amazing that they haven't.
I know.
Yeah, isn't it funny that on Monday, within a mile radius, there was over 10,000 guns?
I think
And
you're way underestimating.
well, I mean, that's a very conservative estimate.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, very conservative. 10,000, I don't know.
Maybe
It
20,000 guns, maybe more. But
yeah,
and none of them hurt anyone.
not a one.
And yet,
Not
in
a
the
one.
same time period in Chicago, like 4 people were shot.
Right. Right. Because what's gonna happen is they're gonna make criminals of the law-abiding, and guess what? As you well know, all your listeners know, the criminals aren't gonna follow the law anyways. So, Richmond's crime will go up, and they're taking guns away from the people, anyone who has a response time. It doesn't matter how short your response time is. You've just made them, I don't know, last responders as opposed to, immediate responders. The first responders, the police officers, won't be there for a while. And if you live in downtown Richmond, that could be minutes. If you live in the metro area and it's 10 or 12 minutes, that's a long time for someone to wait to show up. And as we know, in the Supreme Court has said, and look, I'm not telling off. I know plenty of officers who run towards gunfire, but they don't have to do that, folks. They are under no legal obligation. This has been tried in the Supreme Court. They are under no legal obligation to go. Now, again, I'll say it again. I know plenty of police officers that do run straight into gunfire. I know many, and it's not an easy job, but they're not obligated to by law.
Yeah, and some don't. If you look at what happened down in Parkland.
Yep, indeed.
Scott,
That's what I was thinking of.
Peterson, what was his name? Not Scott Peterson. That was the murderer.
I always forget. I always purposely forget, and I've now really forgotten the guy down in Florida, the school resource officer who just waited outside, or was it the sheriff's deputy? He just waited, and he's like, "I'm just not going to go in."
He didn't go in.
And they got mad at him, and they fired him, and they sued him and whatnot. But ultimately, he got cleared because he's not obligated to do it. You may really be upset, but no, didn't have to.
But then you have people like Stephen Williford who spoke, and I was on the phone with him yesterday. And we're gonna work on a big project together. I think, or Jack Wilson, who's another person that we're gonna work on a big project with together.
Good.
Those guys, and they were under no obligation, and they were average citizens, and they were able to do something. The guy out in Walmart, out in Washington at the Walmart, who stopped the shooting.
Right. And we have there are armed teacher programs in several states. And Ohio has one called FASTER that has spread to Colorado and now Arizona. And they are. I've taken the FASTER course. It's quite fascinating. At the end of the week, I took the one in Ohio. At the end of the course, you have to shoot at. Well, actually, it's 3 points, 3 shots above what the highway patrol has to shoot to qualify. So people say, well, you can't possibly teach civilians how to do this. Well, I don't know. You couldn't pass that course without shooting several points higher than the highway patrol on the same target. So not buying it. You can train people to do that. It is a lot of responsibility, and that's, of course, up to the school district and the state or however it's done. But these things can be done, and they are being done. And it's pretty awesome. And again, there was a joke today. Someone posted it, said that the Democrats are going to come out and they want all this money for funding for their convention. And someone said, "Cool, why don't we just send them a whole bunch of gun-free zones?" All right, well, since they work so well, except that they don't. So there are options there. So far as switching back to the school thing, there are options there, and it's just. There are options with churches as well. Clearly, we saw that in Texas, where they had a program in their church. I know my church has the same, where they have a security program and they have people who train and do that. And now in Texas, unfortunately, but fortunately, these two guys were there at those times. They've had those conversations, and now we have positive examples that these things, if they unfortunately do happen, well, guess what? These gentlemen rose to the occasion. What a phenomenal thing! Winning.
Yep, you are not in Ohio. You're in Colorado still, right?
Actually, I live in Tennessee.
Tennessee. Okay, I thought you were still in Colorado for some reason.
Nope. I am persona non grata in Colorado. A whole lot. I made everyone mad. I made the Republicans mad. I made the Democrats mad.
Well, you know what? That means you did your job.
Yes.
Yeah. No, somebody was asking if you were in Ohio. Yeah.
I go to Ohio a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Utah has the same program as well. And my thing with gun-free zones is over the history of time, we have shown that prohibition of anything does not work.
Correct.
And so why would it work with firearms if it doesn't work with drugs or anything else? It's like every time somebody said, "Well, we just need to make it illegal." My response was, "Yeah, we should do that and make heroin illegal too, because that would stop people from doing it."
Yeah, it isn't, and you just mentioned the Utah example. Those are run out of sheriff's offices. So every state has a different way of doing it, but the, and then that works where because you got rural parts of Utah, but the prohibition of something doesn't work. And when people figure that out and then figure out, hey, there's a path to success here. It may not be something that everyone is super thrilled about in the beginning, but these programs have proven themselves. And it's interesting. People always say, just back when concealed carry was coming to all the states, the same argument was had in every state. The streets will run red with blood. People will be killing each other in the parking lot over eggs or whatever. Those things don't happen. They don't. Again, we go back to Richmond again. There were a ton of guns there, a lot. Millions of rounds probably carried in backups and in magazines and everything else, at least not hundreds of thousands. And all of those bullets stayed in those rifles, and those rifles didn't attack anyone. Hello, that was awesome. And that's the same with anyone with responsibility. With the right comes a responsibility. And this is what we continue to see from gun owners across the country.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Someone's asking for the donation link for PayPal. It's also scrolling at the bottom of the page. You can just go there for that. Yeah, it was so awesome to be there on Monday. And my mom called me the night before, and she was so worried about, I saw it on the news that this is going to happen and this group's going to show up. And I told her, I was like, Mom, one thing is in order for a fight to break out and people to start shooting at each other, there has to be two groups opposed to each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's like every group that's going to be there is going to be pro-gun groups, and the groups that would protest against us aren't even, our moms demand action. It's not going to break out. It's like it's not going to be that. I think a lot of the things that they said on Monday was to try to get people not to show up.
Yeah, well, they did a miserable job despite the weather and the propaganda, because there were a ton of people there. I don't think we're ever going to get a great estimate, but inside the Capitol grounds where you could be disarmed, I think it was almost completely packed. And then 2 blocks in every direction and every side street was packed with people at one point. And it was an awesome display of citizenship and citizens in action.
Yeah, it definitely was. It definitely was. It was awesome. One of the things that I really, really liked was there was Black Lives Matter people there from the Hampton Roads area, and they were interviewed. I don't know if you saw it or not.
I saw it.
And where they're like, don't you feel nervous because you're here? And they were like, no.
Right.
Like everyone here has been nothing but nice to us.
Right. Yeah, it was the night before on Sunday night. There was an ARFCOM, AR15.com for those who don't know, get together, and it was again one of those things where everyone was just there and happy to. People drove in or flew in from around the country, and they were all very excited to sometimes meet face to face people they'd known for years. But it was, hey, we're here for Richmond, and it was neat because without giving away too much, ARFCOM had a plan. They had a plan of action. People had med kits and IFACs, and everyone was ready to help out in an emergency. We had trained firemen. A good friend of mine from Texas drove out to do that. People were already prepared to be their own internal first aid and trauma teams and all this other stuff. Extremely well-trained people. And these were all volunteers who came, and they just wanted to stand up with the people of Virginia. Again, the responsibility, and people were so proud because they thought, look, I don't know if we're going to make a difference in Virginia. I hope we do, but maybe this will be a wake-up call to the rest of the nation. Participate. I drove all the way out here from Michigan or Texas, or flew out from California. This was an opportunity, and someone in one of my social media pages very cleverly said, I think that Virginia taught the rest of the country Latin, meaning the phrase on the Virginia flag,
Yeah.
which basically is, we're not going to put up with tyrants here. I'm simplifying it, but it's on the flag, and I think everyone was pretty excited to be a part of that.
Yeah, it's like you try to pass tyrannical laws in a state that has a dead tyrant and someone standing over him with their foot on top of the dead tyrant.
Right.
It's like that's always the tyrants in Latin. Why was Virginia such a ground zero for everyone to come, where like other states passed these laws, and it didn't happen?
Well, I think a lot of it was that it happened over such a slow process. New Jersey slowly, and New York, and Massachusetts over time, they would kind of trickle away that whole look. If we boil the frog slowly, it won't know it's dying. What happened in Virginia is that they just grabbed all the Bloomberg, or as a certain former current NRA board member says, Mayor Big Gulp. They went to his attorneys, I'm sure, and said, "Just give it all to us, and let's just try and jam it all through now." And they went from zero to hero. They grabbed to people who believe in them, and just took it all and threw it all and say, "Well, let's see if we can get it to stick." They went too far, and everyone now knows that when people say, "Oh, we don't want to come for your guns," yes, they do.
Yeah, one of the things that kind of really makes me happy is over the summer there was a assault weapons ban. I always say weapons like that, but assault weapons ban uh, in the Senate and also the House that were both proposed. They both had massive amounts of co-sponsors and everything, and they were introduced right away. They were killed because Republicans controlled both chambers of
Mhm.
our legislative body, but they were. This year, the assault weapons ban in the Senate has already been killed, um, in which is great. And the assault weapons ban in the House of Delegates was supposed to originally come up tomorrow, and they pulled it from the schedule. And as of right now, Mark Levin, not Mark Levin, Levine is his last name, Levine.
Ed Levine, VCDL.
No, no, no. The guy who proposed it,
Oh, right. Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Levine. Not Ed. Another Levine.
Yeah.
Anti-gun Levine.
Yes.
He has not been able to get a single sponsor to sign on, and apparently they don't have the votes by a lot.
And that's awesome that they kind of got the message here. What I think ultimately was let's throw all these things up. We know we'll get some.
Like the spaghetti against the wall.
Mhm. Let's just throw it all up there. We know we won't get some. We're going to have to walk some of it back and seem reasonable. That was the plan from the beginning. I mean, if they could have gotten it all, they'd been like, "Woohoo, we got it all." But even their approach was wrong. I'm super thrilled to hear that there is some. We're not going to go there with that. That's great. But
hopefully they can't get the votes.
Yeah,
Because Bloomberg's making calls.
He absolutely is making calls, and he spent so much money there. He wants to be repaid. He wants that money to be well spent. And thankfully, what happened in Richmond was a awesome display. And I think a lot of legislators said, what, I think I kind of want to still be a legislator. So maybe we won't do that. But they pushed so hard, so fast. It's quite clear that ultimately is their goal, anyways. And I think that was the wake up call. That's why people flew from California and drove from Texas and Michigan and you said Alaska. I think the only state I didn't hear somebody from was Hawaii, and I'm sure somebody's going to chime up saying, I was from Hawaii and I was there." So
yeah, there was someone from Hawaii there.
See? There you go.
Yeah, I know. They travel back and forth a lot, so they're in Virginia a lot. So
no, that's great. It's great stuff. It's great stuff. It's it was, as we kind of covered a lot of topics today, and it's just the room for engagement by anyone listening to any one of those topics, or lobbying, or even running for office. Those are all things, or helping with Hold My Guns, or, inviting Sedini in to do a Walk the Talk America thing, or, organizing and figuring out an armed teacher program in your state. We covered so much, but the cool part is that those are opportunities for the quote unquote average Joe who's never been involved to get involved or engaged in every single one of those things.
Yeah, that's one thing I always push for people is to get involved right away, and don't let the opportunity pass. Don't think that you can't do anything or you don't have enough time. Just emailing in your spare time is something that is good to do,
Yep.
and it doesn't take a lot of work,
Nope.
and you can do it, from your phone sitting on the couch.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And we have a big election coming up in 2020, and I know gun owners are a little concerned for many reasons, and some are not super Trump fans, and some are. But what we do know is that there are a possibility for more Supreme Court appointments, which is a good thing, no matter how we think about that, and fixing the federal justice system with justices that are focused less on emotions and more on the Constitution. I just want constitutional judges. I don't want anything else. There's so much coming up and so much at stake that, again, we're going to have to put in the effort. I will probably be on the road 30 to 60 days this year, just traveling to battleground states, just encouraging people to participate in the process. Why'd you come here? I came here for free, and I'm just here to encourage you to vote. If you want to protect your sport, or you want to protect your rights or your hobbies, these things need your engagement. It's the same message everywhere I go. I just have more examples when I go to new places. Battleground states, I will be driving and flying.
Yeah, I think you answered Teven's question. My mission is to educate people what they can do and get people involved out there about Second Amendment issues, and also highlight what's going on in the Second Amendment community, so you know what they're trying to push by you, and also to bring people on who have missions like yours and who have missions like Sarah's, so people can get to know who these people are, and the Second Amendment community.
And we don't succeed without their help. We don't, because I mean, you get phone calls all day long. I know I do. You and I now talk, semi regularly now. But it takes that personal connection, folks. It's not just John and Tim and a board of directors somewhere and a group somewhere. It's all of us putting in a little time. Do what you can.
And Chris wants to know if you can come to Louisiana.
Oh, I've been to Louisiana, but I will again. I love it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I talked to the director of Louisiana for GOA like every week.
Yeah, it's again, they've got a huge culture of hunting down there and outdoorsmanship, as well as the defense of the Second Amendment, and it's reminding people that they matter. And if me coming there and saying, hey, you know what matters, and that's the thing that motivates them, great. I have some friends I need to visit down there anyways. I'd love an invitation. I don't need anything. Go have some dinner. I like to learn what the locals know, because I don't know. I'm the guy from out of town. But if that motivates you, all in.
Yeah. Another thing that I do is, like, I got funding for a Maj Toure tour of Virginia, where he's going to be going to like 5 different basically inner city areas, and talking about firearms and Second Amendment, to try to reach a community that we haven't really reached yet, and also teach a firearms class. And also, we brought him down right before lobby day, and he did an engagement where he got to engage with people, and he got to teach them how to do the street evangelist of the Second Amendment type stuff, which is kind of cool. And I'm hoping to spread that nationwide. And we did another thing where we bought a gun in training for a single mom.
It's awesome stuff. And again, we don't all have to look the same, folks. We don't, because Maj does an awesome thing. And there's Kevin Dixie and Argo J and Tony Simon and all these guys. And I just happened to mention some. There are people in Florida, the Puerto Rican Pistolero. There are all kinds of people out there who look like you, who don't look like you, who have different thoughts, but what we all have in common is the preservation of our rights. And do not let anyone divide us, because we don't need to be divided. We're stronger because we're different.
Yep. And on that note, I am going to say goodbye to you and thank you so much for coming on the show. Do you have any plugs for anywhere where people can get in touch with you or?
The best way to find me actually is through my podcast called To the Republic, and we do long form interviews of people with my co-host Rebecca Schmoy from 1 Million Moms Against Gun Control. We're just getting that started. We've got about 15 episodes in, and we do that. We release episodes. We don't do it live. We can't. We have crazy schedules, but at totherepublic.us.
Yeah, 1 million moms for gun control, against gun control. Sorry, not for gun control. Yep. Against gun control. It's a really good organization, and everyone should check it out.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and keep up the good fight.
We're in it together, brother.
All right, it's good. All right, guys, this is it for tonight and this week. In fact, tomorrow night I got a Pinewood Derby, and on Saturday I'm taking my sons to Munster Jam to watch some Munster Truck action. Monday, I have some radio interviews set up to talk about Virginia, so I'll be back on Tuesday. And until then, I will see you guys. And remember, the Second Amendment is the only amendment that cannot be taken away, can only be given away. And once they get that, they can take away the rest. So good night.